national headlines, and the local stories you care about. WLBB, Carrollton, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the WLBB Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I'm your host today, Sara Claudia Tillman. I hope everybody is having a wonderful start to your Wednesday so far. Today's guest is bright, she's bubbly, she's energetic, but she's going to share a story with us that is kind of dark and is kind of hard to share. So I'm so thankful she's here with us today. We have Honey Duncan here with us, and she's going to share about her struggle with addiction and how her faith and her family and her community really gave her the courage and the strength to take action against this unseen enemy. So welcome, Honey. Welcome to the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners, even though I think most of them probably know you and know who you are.
Yeah, of course. Well, first, I just want to start by thanking you for having me and giving me this opportunity to share my testimony and maybe help someone that's struggling with the same things that I was. But my name is Honey. I grew up right here in Carrollton, Georgia, and I'm the youngest of 4 children to Richard and Bunny Duncan. I went to Carrollton City Schools and graduated in 2007, and I went on to the University of West Georgia, where I got my degree in mass communications. I am an aunt to 4 incredible kiddos, and I am a dog mom. I currently work at Office Depot in Noonan as the print and client services supervisor. Try to say that 5 times fast. And I'm also 4 years clean from opiates and benzos. And so basically that's painkillers, Xanax, and even heroin.
Well, I want to jump right into that because I know you have a lot to share, and you're right. I think anybody listening can gain from your testimony, but especially that one person who might be struggling with it. So let's jump right in and talk about how your addiction began.
So that's kind of a complicated answer because I've always believed that, and this is of course a personal opinion of mine, I have no data to back this up, but anyone that is struggling with addiction that I've met also struggled with some kind of trauma in their past or mental health issues or physical pain, and I kind of had all 3. So I have this laundry list of mental health issues, including like depression and anxiety. I had some sexual trauma in my past, and I also have suffered from back pain since I was in my teens. And I think that it kind of starts with those things, but the first time that I actually took a pill was my last semester at West Georgia. I was hanging out with some friends, and I was complaining about how bad my back hurt, and one of them kind of reached out, handed me a little blue pill, and said, "This will help." And after about 30 minutes of taking it, I remember laying on the bed and thinking, this is exactly how I want to feel the rest of my life. And just feeling completely numb from physical and emotional pains. And that was just the best feeling in my life at that moment. And but to go on to actual addiction, I can pinpoint the moment that I became actively addicted. I had just gotten back from a trip to Peru with my mom and brother, and I just went hard into it every single day, multiple times a day. And It was really hard because there was this one day that I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do that today. And I immediately went into withdrawals. I had all of those symptoms, and it was terrible. And I was like, okay, well, now I have to maintain. Now I wake up and do it throughout the day and right before I go to bed. And if I actually wanted to feel high, I had to do even more. Mm-hmm. And it was just at that moment that I realized that I had to do this in order to survive my day.
Yeah, and I mean, it was such a simple start to it. You know, just something that in your mind was an insignificant little decision just to kind of take that pain away, and it seems like it just kind of built on each other.
Yeah, it really does. And that's what I think is confusing to people about addiction, is that it's not just this one and done thing. It's a multitude of problems that happen, that build up, and then it's too late to change.
Yeah, before you even know it. I mean, it's happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So you talked at the beginning, you mentioned your family, and anybody who knows you know you come from this big family that's very prevalent in the community. Yeah. And you said too, I wanna touch on this because when I met up with you a few weeks ago, you started out sharing with me, and you said, I never thought that something like this could happen to me. You know, a Duncan, a cheerleader in high school. You know, you never thought something like this could happen to you. So kind of touch on this and talk about how addiction started changing your life and your lifestyle and kind of who you were before.
Yeah. So, growing up, of course, I went to the DARE programs, and I participated in Red Ribbon Week and wore my crazy outfits and did the drunk goggles in high school and stuff like that, but I never really paid attention to it. I always kind of brushed it off because that doesn't happen in my family. That doesn't happen in any of the families that I surrounded myself with. Addiction, alcoholism was not anything we ever talked about or I ever saw or experienced. So, and honestly, growing up in my privilege, I realized, I was like, you know, that happens to junkies underneath a bridge, you know, that threw their life away. That's their problem. That would never happen to me. And I think that addiction has no bias. It doesn't matter your race, your gender, your identity, your cultural background, your monetary value. It doesn't care. It's going to come after you, and it's going to come after you hard. And that kind of happened to me. You don't see it coming, and it can affect anyone. And it's so important that if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, that you kind of support those people and you ask for support, because communicating and talking about it is the first step to getting help.
Yeah. And you talk about, you know, sharing with others. What was it like when you finally, you know, came clean to your family? Was that hard?
Okay. So this is one that's really hard for me to talk about. So if I get a little emotional, I'm sorry. But I vividly remember going to my parents about it. I don't really remember telling my other family members, but my mom was on her computer and my dad was in their bedroom, and I went and got both of them and said, I need to talk to you about something important. And we come to the living room, and I sat down, and my heart was pumping out of my chest. My hands were clammy and I was shaking, and I didn't know how to start this conversation. Mm-hmm. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, what is it, baby? What do you need to talk about? And I didn't know how to walk into the conversation, so I kind of just blurted it out and said, I need help. I'm struggling really bad with my mental health, and I'm thinking about suicide every single day, and I'm even been really bad into drugs for a few months now, and I need professional help. I can't do it on my own. And I just remember having this pause, this moment of, oh my gosh, they're going to disown me. They're going to hate me. I have failed them. I have so much shame and guilt. I am the worst person. And all of these bad, terrible things that the devil will tell you. But of course, my parents, the incredible people that they are, just took me into their arms. And they held me and they cried and they said, we didn't know. We're so sorry. We didn't see the signs. But it all makes sense now. And I'm sorry. Okay.
You're doing great.
And I remember my dad kind of pulled me away with my shoulders in his hands and said, we're going to do this for you. Whatever it takes, however much it costs, we're going to help you. And that is so incredibly important. As I talked about it before, like, I know that not everyone is as blessed as me to have that kind of support. Mm-hmm. And you know, having them give me that response from the very beginning, I think it really changed the path that my life could have gone down. The fact that I had parents that I could go to and talk to about this, and, have a whole community behind me, supporting me, holding me up when I couldn't hold myself up, was so incredibly important.
Yes, and that support is so important. And you're right, not everybody has a family like that, but I hope through you sharing, it kind of opens people's eyes and shows them that they can be that support. But we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, Oak Mountain Academy and Tanner Health System, and we'll be right back to hear more from Honey Duncan. Stay tuned.
Travel, get-togethers, Sunday morning worship. COVID-19 has almost put a stop to our way of life. Vaccination is our best shot at getting back to normal. The COVID-19 vaccine is based on more than a decade of research. Trials show it's safe and can provide up to 95% protection when you've received both doses. Tanner is committed to making the vaccine as widely available as possible, giving you a shot at getting back to life. Until then, keep wearing your mask, washing your hands, and avoid gatherings. Learn more and get updates at tanner.org/vaccine.
At Oak Mountain Academy, our daily schedule includes convocation, prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance. By doing so, we build a family-like community where all students grow and flourish, and personal faith is encouraged. Through community service and a historical approach to biblical study, our students are taught the value of the warrior way: honesty, respect, and responsibility. Oak Mountain Academy. We are a family creating legacies. To learn more, visit oakmountain.us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I'm your host today, Sara Claudia Tillman, here on Community Voice, joined by Honey Duncan, who is sharing very honestly and very openly about her struggle with addiction. So right before we went to break, we were talking about the first time that you came clean to your family. Mm-hmm. So how did this kind of help you and propel you forward on your own journey to get clean?
So now that I had some accountability to get clean, there was really no going back. It was important to stick with that decision, even though, of course, every fiber of my being wanted to keep using and do that. But I think that the major part is having those people to hold me accountable and give me that tough love, and just help me find a place to go and help me decide what's going to be the best venture going forward.
Yeah, so kind of walk us through that, your whole journey to get clean. What worked, what didn't, what kind of experiences you had? Yeah,
so I think I want to kind of start with what didn't work for me. I was never the type that could just quit cold turkey. I have zero self-control, and well, I didn't at that point. And so I went to detox to begin with, which was like a 5 to 7 day detox. And I thought that, I'm done with withdrawals, so I'm cured. I am all better now. But what I didn't realize is that I didn't just have to get over the hump of addiction. There's also all the problems inside of me. And there's the best quote that I've ever heard to explain addiction was from Russell Brand, and he said, "Drugs and alcohol are not my problem. Reality is my problem. Drugs and alcohol are the solution to that problem." And I thought that if I could just get through withdrawals, I'm cured. I've got this. I'm good. 2 days after I got out of detox, I relapsed and went back to the same detox about a month later, and decided after I got out of detox, I would do the 28-day outpatient but residential program. So I lived on that campus and I went to outpatient treatment, which was great. I learned a lot about family dynamics and communication, and got a lot of tools for my toolbox, quote unquote, on how to help with relapse prevention. But I think that didn't work for me because it still wasn't deep enough. And so after that, I had about 90 days clean and decided that, well, you know what? If alcohol was never really my problem, I didn't have like struggles with alcohol. I can drink. I'll have a glass of red wine. It'll be fine. Well, a glass turned into a bottle. A bottle turned into other substances that I hadn't experimented with yet. And that ultimately led me down a worse path than I had ever been set on before, because at that moment I decided to start injecting heroin. And I did that for about 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, my heart had stopped 3 times. So I had overdosed 3 times and had to be revived with Narcan. And the only reason why I stopped doing that was because I was arrested and charged with felony possession of Schedule I substance. And thank God for first offenders, because I pled first offenders and was able to serve my time and do my community service and all that kind of stuff. And now that's no longer on my record. But part of my sentencing for that was to go to a long-term residential substance abuse program. And it had to be approved by the state. So I did all this kind of research once I got out, and I found my sister's keeper in Riverdale. And that was a 6-month residential substance abuse program for homeless and low-income families or women. So that applied to me fully, because I was homeless, jobless, insuranceless, and honestly hopeless. And so I went to this program, and I think the reason why it worked so well for me was because it didn't just target drug addiction. It really focused on us as we were people. Like it really helped us deal with the past traumas and learn how to cope with the mental health issues that we were dealing with, and learn how to be better women in society and communicate with others and not be aggressive and not be, these people that just run at the first sight of trouble. So I think that's why that one worked really well.
Yeah. So what I kind of hear that I want to touch on again that you said was, it wasn't really about the substances for you. It was more about, why are you turning to these substances and having to deal with those underlying issues, because like you said, you kind of thought you got over one substance and you kind of moved on to some others. So I think that's an important point that a lot of people don't think about and a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. This is why it's so important for me to communicate and advocate for addiction, is because I know there are a lot of people that think that it's just this choice. And of course that first time was a choice, but, it is truly a disease, and it's a family disease. It doesn't just affect the one person that's using. It will consume your entire life and everyone surrounding you. It'll put the darkest times on anyone that you associate with. And that's why it's so important to talk about it and open up about it and really just have this open line of communication so we can maybe start to heal.
Yeah. And showing people that, yes, it is that one choice, but all the consequences and just sharing about your whole journey, how it went from just taking that one pill to relieve some back pain to, ending up in jail. And we're going to take one more break. And after that, I want to talk more about that time and kind of talk about how your lowest point turned out to be a turning point for you and a big blessing. So everybody stay tuned. We're going to hear from our sponsors, Oak Mountain Academy and Tanner Health System. And we'll be right back for our last segment here on Community Voice with Honey Duncan.
Travel, get-togethers, Sunday morning worship. COVID-19 has almost put a stop to our way of life. Vaccination is our best shot at getting back to normal. The COVID-19 vaccine is based on more than a decade of research. Trials show it's safe and can provide up to 95% protection when you've received both doses. Tanner is committed to making the vaccine as widely available as possible, giving you a shot at getting back to life. Until then, keep wearing your mask, washing your hands, and avoid gatherings. Learn more and get updates at tanner.org/vaccine.
At Oak Mountain Academy, our academic excellence shines through innovation and a personalized educational experience. Our pre-K 3 through 12th grade environment offers a family-oriented atmosphere. We are an independent school with faith-based values and an academy honor code. Our academic standards prepare our students for college and beyond. I'm Patrick Duran, headmaster, inviting you to visit us on the mountain or at oakmountain.us. Come see how our warriors are creating legacies.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. Sara Claudia Tillman here with our guest, Honey Duncan, who is sharing with us about her struggle with addiction. Now, before we went to this break, you talked about how in your journey to get clean, there was some things that didn't work, some things that did, but throughout that journey, you ended up falling into heroin, and that led you to spend some time in jail. And I think when we spoke earlier, that was what you said was kind of your lowest point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in addiction, a term we use is rock bottom, and everyone's rock bottom is going to look a little different. Some, you don't have to go all the way to overdose to get there, but even overdose wasn't my rock bottom. It was being arrested and sitting in jail for 19 days in Cherokee County, and just seeing kind of some of the other women that were in there were some with such powerful stories of redemption and all that kind of stuff. And then there were other women that this was the life that they were going to live the rest of their lives. They had made the decision like that this is how they want to be, in and out of jail, doing whatever they want with their lives. And at that moment, I was sitting there and I just realized, like, this is not the person that I was led to be. Mm-hmm. This is not the path that I was supposed to take. How can I come back from this? And I mean, there's not a lot to do in jail. You can read, play cards, and pray. And I did a lot of praying and really just focusing on the path that God wanted me to take and what I was supposed to do with my life. But not only that, but like how to come back from this, because there's a lot of lies that the devil will tell you that this is how you're supposed to be. This is all you are meant to do. You are no better than this. You don't deserve any better than this. You are not loved. And I believed those lies for a very long time. And then finally I realized that I am loved. I am worthy. I do deserve a better life. And so sitting in jail, it kind of was like of course, God gives us free will. So I had decisions to make. I knew that I had multiple paths laid ahead of me. I could go out and keep using. I could end my life, or I could start making changes to better myself. And what those changes looked like. What were the actions? Like, let's make a game plan. Let's make an actual game plan of what I'm going to do. What steps am I going to take to better myself? So even though being arrested should be this like lowest point and like, oh my gosh, so much shame and, ooh, we can't associate with her. She has a felony charge. Ugh. And it turns out that like that was the moment that I needed to happen in my life in order to become this woman that I am today.
That's such a good way to look at it. And I do see how in that position, I'm sure a lot of people that you came in contact with, and like you said, I'm sure it came through your mind, I don't deserve a happy life. I don't deserve to get out of here and still be loved and still, lead a successful life. But that one choice you made, and, yes, it led you on this journey with addiction, but that doesn't make you a bad person. And I think that's probably what a lot of people think. You mentioned at the beginning, the junkies you see on the side of the highway, they had to start somewhere. And, maybe a big part of how they got there is because they did think they weren't worthy and they didn't have anything else to live for. Yeah, for sure. And that takes me all the way back to communication. Like I can't hit on that enough, is that, instead of casting judgment, or instead of, being impatient or unkind and all those kind of things, it's so important that we give grace that was so freely given to us, and we share kindness and patience, because we never know what battle someone's going through. And if you just open up that line of communication, you could be the one to save someone's life. Like you could be that one person that your cousin, your sibling, your aunt, your uncle, whoever can come to and say, you know what, because you've been so kind to me, I want to talk to you about something that I've been struggling with. And that's so important. Yeah. Yeah, you making that hard decision to open up to your parents, ultimately, that's what saved your life and why you're able to do everything you're doing today. So it's been a journey, I'm sure. And I want to get to, after you got out of jail, what was kind of your next step?
So after I got out of jail, I started looking for a treatment program like I talked about. And, this place that I went to, my sister's keeper, like I said, I was there for 6 months. And I briefly mentioned how it was for homeless and low-income women. That's not the life that I grew up in. I had a lot of privilege, and I was very sheltered. And I know, like, this is not anything bad against my parents. Like, they wanted to give me the best life they could, and they did. Like, they were incredible. But with that comes, that shelteredness. And I met a lot of women that I probably would have never come into contact with if I hadn't gone to my sister's keeper. And hearing their stories and hearing about the generational cycle of addiction in their family and the cycle of domestic violence and how that's just a way of life. That's just how it is. And hearing their low income background and all this kind of stuff was just shocking. Like it was jarring. And at that point, I put my privilege aside. I put all of this aside and decided to listen to them, because obviously no matter what their background was and no matter what my background was, we ended up at the same place at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. Like we are the same people. We are cut from the same cloth. And seeing that and having my eyes opened and being able to listen really changed me as a person. I think that it helped me put into perspective different aspects of my life, being able to see how angry I was and how impatient I was and how I just wanted everything my way all the time. So now I am way more ready to give grace to people and be patient and be compassionate, because I understand that even if you put a smile on and you put a nice outfit on and you brush your hair, you might be dealing with something super dark that I have no idea about. Mm-hmm. So I have no room to judge anyone. And I learned that from going to that treatment center for homeless and low-income women.
It sounds like you were able to look at this place you were in that, like we said, it was dark and hard, but gain a valuable life lesson and some valuable experiences from it. And it kind of changed your whole perspective. Well, that was 4 years ago. Yep. Is when, you got out of jail, you went to that long-term facility. And so how long have you been clean now?
1,514 days, which is a little bit over 4 years.
Well, congratulations. And I know just from talking to you, it's like you said before, it's not a one and done thing. It's an everyday struggle. Yes. And I'm sure you face those hardships every day. What would you say is like the one thing that's been the biggest part of your success, if you could have one thing? I
can't break it down to one thing. I called them my 4 pillars, and it's surprise, surprise, communication. That even includes how I talk to myself. I'm so much kinder to myself than I used to be, but also like coming open and talking about it. I know that there's at least 10 people that I can call anytime, day or night, to say, hey, I want to get high. And they will drop what they're doing, wake up out of dead of sleep, and help me and talk to me. The other one is just kind of plays into my support system. I make sure that I surround myself with people that I'm willing to support and that are willing to support me openly with no judgment. And then, of course, my toolbox that I mentioned briefly earlier. I have a lot of tools that I use for relapse prevention, and it's so great. And I can talk more on that later with anyone that wants to reach out to me. And then the most important one is God. My relationship with God has become so much stronger over the past 4 years, because I know that I am not here by chance. I did not survive 4 overdoses total by chance. There is a purpose for my life. There is a calling that I'm meant to live out. And I think that prayer and worship has really saved me from my day-to-day life. And I think that that's just so important in my journey.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us. I wanted to end with some advice, but I'm going to go ahead and take those 4 pillars. That's just about the best advice I think you could give to anybody. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and tell all our listeners, if you are struggling, Honey is here. Yep. She can point you in the right direction if you need help. She is willing and able to listen and to talk. Yeah. So thank you so much, Honey, for being with us today and for sharing. And thank all of you listeners for tuning in to Community Voice. And I will be back again next month. Thank you.